Good morning and welcome to ACC 124. It's Computer Accounting and Applications Using Databases, which to translate means you're going to learn how to use Microsoft Access. To start off, this is your orientation video. We used to have you come to campus for mandatory orientation. We no longer do that. However, it is mandatory that you watch this video and then submit an electronic, via email, an orientation quiz. This is your confirmation that you are attending class, and if you don't submit the quiz, you will be administratively withdrawn. The reason that this orientation to me is so much more important than my other online classes is because this is an 8-week accelerated class. It's really important that you understand that while this is an 8-week class, we still cover the same amount of material that you would if it was a 16-week class. It is not just a shortened class. It is the same material, twice as much. Now, I always tell my face-to-face students, I don't believe this class is hard, but it is very time-consuming. So for those, sometimes it translates to hard as well because of the amount of time you're going to be spending. At the very beginning, I don't believe for most of you that will be a lot of time. As we progress to chapters 5, 6, and 7, and then your final project, that's when you'll be spending a lot of time. So I want you to keep that in mind. In a regular class, if you spend 3 days a week in class, that's 3 hours. Then if you spend another 3 hours in homework, that's 6. You might need to double that. Obviously, a lot of that depends on if you have any knowledge of Microsoft Access. The more familiar you are with Access, the quicker and the easier this will be. And even the more familiar you are with Microsoft products, the easier this will be. When we get into the Access databases, you will see that tables and queries look almost identical to Microsoft Excel. So it's not me talking about how this class will run is not meant to scare you as much as to give you just an overall view of how the class will run so you have a clear understanding what's going to be expected over the next 8 weeks. Alright, so now let's go through the syllabus. Right now you should be seeing your Blackboard screen. We will use Blackboard a lot. I will post announcements on how people are doing if we're getting stuck in certain areas and posting where those problems are. I will post a weekly announcement and send that out via email when I'm done with the grading so that you may go in the gradebook and view your comments. I cannot stress enough how important it is to view your comments each week. Every semester I have students that make the same mistake the entire semester each week, and then at the end of the year are confused why their grade is so low. They never checked the gradebook, they never checked their comments, and if you keep making the same mistake each week, usually the points you get deducted also go up each week. So I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to read the comments on your homework and assignments each week. So that's the announcement page. It will be the first page that pops up each week. Next is instructor information. You can see here my phone number, my email, and then listed down under here are my office hours. They're not typed in here. They will be on the syllabus, and I will add them here as well. The next column down is PowerPoint. Now, everyone obviously learns a little differently. This book is actually very good, and if you go through the chapters one by one, you will actually be walking through an Access database each week. You can do the same thing using PowerPoint. So if you're somewhere and you don't have your book, or if you're just more of a visual learner versus a book learner, you can use these PowerPoint slides. The next tab is course documents. Right now, this is the only problem we've encountered. Everyone has a very difficult time the first time around learning to print to a page. There is no paper in this in this class or in the final project. Everything is submitted electronically through Blackboard. The only time that you actually will need to email me is for questions. If you post questions in Blackboard, I will not get them in the gradebook until I actually grade your homework. So it's very important that if you have a question, you email me. Don't wait until something is graded. So this is the area that I will add more information to as time goes if you need, as other students have questions. Underneath that, underneath course documents is what's called course content. Course content contains the solution files and starting files for all the exercises that you will see in the chapter. So for example, if I were to click on Introduction to Access, now you can't see my mouse, but when I'm clicking on Introduction to Access, I will actually be clicking right here. So I'm clicking on Introduction to Access, and when I do that, it takes me to what's called the Traders Database. When you're in here, you will be able to click on the Traders Database, and it's going to open up and show you the Traders Database and the start for that database. If we go back into course content again and go into Chapter 2, you will see in this case, Chapter 2, I've already put all the different databases. So this one right here is the customer database. You also need, customer Excel file and the accounts database. And then if you look closely, you can see down here on these that those are your solutions. In Chapter 2, your hands-on exercise is broken up into 4 parts. So that is why you'll see A02H 3-bank solution. That's the third step in the homework problem. So this allows you to work along with your book and try to do the steps where you can see the actual solution. Some students like to open up the beginning database and work it from scratch. Some students like to open up this last one here, which is 4, and that actually will be the final solution. Some students like to start with that one and just look at what happened throughout the database. Either one is fine with me. I just like you to be able to see what is going on as you go through your text. So when we go back now under course content, this is actually your main area, assignments. So for right now, I'm going to skip assignments, go down to Access 2016. This tab is if you do not have Access 2016 on your computer. Now, if you bought your book in the bookstore, it came with a CD that has Access 2016 on it. Obviously, that is a very easy way of loading it onto your computer. If you already have 2016 Access, you're fine. And then another option is all students that have a student email address, which should be you, can use Office 365 as long as you keep that email address for free. And right here is where the instructions are on how to download this. So this would be something that you could use well after you're done with this class, and it gives you all of Office 365, not just Access. So that is how, if you were going through and you wanted to download it, this would give you the latest Microsoft products. Then we go down to the next one, which is the 2016 book. We had trouble last year with the bookstore and with the snow and the Martin Luther King weekend. I don't know if we're still having this problem, but we had trouble with running out of books. So this is Chapter 1, and it's broken down into 6 different parts because we were not able to scan it in larger quantities. And then here's also Chapter 2. If you don't have your book, this will allow you to get going because you don't have time to not to have your book for a week. So here it is if you're waiting on financial aid, or if you're just, the bookstore's out, this is how you can get started. And then the last 2 tabs here are course tools, which you should be familiar with, and then the St. Louis Community College library, which should not be needed in this class, but it's here. All right, so let's go back up to the 2 tabs that I skipped. Under Start Here, which is right here underneath the announcements, you have several different things. You have the syllabus, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. You have your orientation video, which I've referenced a couple times, which you're going to be watching. And then you have an introduction to Access and printing video, which you should also watch. Now again, if you are familiar with Access, this will come easier. And printing, this will show you the step-by-step on how to print. I always get questions on how to print. This video will show you how to do that. And then the last thing is your syllabus quiz that will need to be turned in by Friday. So let's go ahead and take a look at the syllabus. All you need to do when you're looking at download the syllabus is go to this area and click on the syllabus. So we're going to bring up the syllabus. And for some reason my screen just went blank. There we go. And take a look at the syllabus. All right, when you open up the syllabus, the first few things that are coming to mind here, you got my office hours and you got my campus location. So I'm on the Merrimack campus in BA 219E. That is on the second floor of the Business Administration building. And there's my phone number. I will tell you, you're going to get a much quicker response and a much more detailed response if you email me. Answering Access questions is very difficult while on the phone, and I only check my voicemail when I'm on campus. As you can see my hours, I am on campus every day. Usually it's kind of mid-morning to mid-afternoon. I do answer emails throughout the day, and I'm usually pretty good at responding either that day or first thing in the next morning. If you haven't looked at it already, the book is Access 2016, the comprehensive version. And as I noted before, it is very important that you have Microsoft 2016. I get asked all the time if you can use the 2013 version. It is not the same. And since you do have access to the free 2016, whether you get the disc or use the college's Office 365, if you use 2013, you're going to have problems matching it up with the book. And that also goes the other way around. If you're using Access 2013 book, you're going to have things that are different. So it is important that you use 2016 all the way around. In this class, there are no prerequisites listed. However, having a working knowledge of the computer and a basic knowledge of Microsoft applications is a must. I do not teach how to use a computer, nor do I teach Microsoft applications on the basic knowledge. All right, so now let's talk about the description. We've talked about the overall fact that this class is Microsoft Access. It's going to teach you how to create tables, queries, forms, and reports that can be used for various accounting aspects such as accounts receivable, accounts payable, inventory, payroll. And what you're going to find is a database is significantly bigger in Access than the database is in Excel. Now Excel is still wonderful, and you're going to learn how to import things from Excel into Access so it would not have to be recreated. You can also export things from Access back into Excel. Access is nice because you can create forms and reports that make things look pretty versus what you get when you use Excel. Now, here's the point structure in the class. Each week you have a quiz, a hands-on exercise, and a homework problem. They each go up. Quizzes are 10 points, hands-on exercises are 15, and homework are 20. You have 7 of them, and then you have a case project. You do not have a final exam. Your case project is the final exam. And note that it must be turned in on time with a passing grade in order to pass this course. Now the point structure is such that if you didn't turn it in, you probably couldn't pass the course anyways. However, it must be turned in with a passing grade because that final project shows me that you're able to work and create a database from start to finish and not just piecemeal, which is kind of what we're doing each chapter. All right, so now another thing that happens in this class a lot more than in other classes is student requesting an incomplete. And I believe that that happens mainly because it is 8 weeks and students tend to get behind. It's very difficult to catch up once you get more than 1 week behind because each chapter builds on the other chapter. So for example, if you missed chapter 2 and we're now working on chapter 3, it's sometimes very difficult to do chapter 3 and get it done on time when you haven't done chapter 2 to learn what was going on. But if you do chapter 2 and it's late, now chapter 3 is also late. So things kind of build on each other. So I get asked a lot for incompletes. So please note that 80% of the homework and assignments have to be done, and you must have a 70% in the class or better. So in this class, it's pretty much most of your homework has to be done with the exception of the final project. So it's something that's medical, a death in the family, something that happens at the end of the 8 weeks. Now, once we get through the syllabus, I'm going to go show you where your assignments are. But everything, like I said, is going to be accessed in Blackboard through what's called the Assignment tab. And it's broken out by weeks, so you won't have any trouble trying to figure out what is due each week. Every homework and assignment will give you a starting database and instructions on what you're supposed to complete. In some weeks, you actually will start with a blank database, but I will tell you that. Every week, you got a quiz, you got a hands-on exercise, and you got a homework. When you go to print, there are a couple different ways in which you can print. Now, there is a separate video when we go back to the class videos that show you how to print when I'm doing it, but these are the 3 different ways in which you can. I would tell you that the best way, in my opinion, is to do the number 1. And the reason being is if you do number 1, you can do it that way for everything. Tables, queries, forms, and reports. Number 2 can only be done for tables, queries, and reports. You cannot do it for forms. And number 3 is actually a 2-step process, which is why I don't do it. So number 1 says you save it. When you go to print, instead of printing to a printer, you actually print to a file. You either print it to PDF, an XPS, or a OneNote. And then you store that printout in a selected folder that you wish. I suggest that you create a folder for this class and store everything in there. And then you're going to upload that when you're complete, which I'll show you how to do. You can select in that mode whether you want it landscape or portrait, and that will help you so that it's formatted correctly. When you turn in your homework, I want it formatted in some reasonable format that you would give a boss. It needs to look professional enough that you would give that printout to your boss. So those are the 3 different ways that you can print. Another thing to note is that you can turn in homework and assignments late, but you will receive a maximum of 50 points. This is done so that I'm highly encouraging you not to turn in things late, but if you have a bad week, you can still turn in the assignment. Having 1 bad week at 50% points will not hurt you. Having 2 is going to affect your grade. So that is the hands-on exercises and the homework that can be turned in late. And you will get 50% of whatever score you got. So for example, if you got an 18 out of 20 and you turned it in late, then you would get a 9. If you got 20 out of 20, you'd get a 10. Quizzes, on the other hand, cannot be turned in late because the answers are released once you get it done after 2 tries. So therefore, the answers start floating around once students get them done. Then we have the academic dishonesty and the withdrawal dates. In this class, I encourage you to work with other students if you're in the lab. However, it is your responsibility to do your own database. That means if you're working in the lab, you should both be on your own computers. And then you can talk amongst yourself while you're working. It is cheating if you both work at one computer, do it together, and copy the database. That is not allowed because that does not show me that you both know what you're doing when you're working in the database. So if you're working with another student or a friend, you both need to be working on separate databases because I can see the start time and I can see which computer it's created on, and there's no way a computer can create 2 databases at the exact same time with the exact same ID. So please make sure that you work on your own. But again, own computer, I do encourage you working with other people. The last day to withdraw is Friday. That is not the correct date. I apologize. That's the normal date if you were to withdraw from a 16-week class. For this class, it's slightly different. For this class, it is going to be February 17th. So I will change that date, actually, while we are talking. So it will be February 17th is the last day to drop this class. If you find that you're not going to be able to keep up with the work or the course is just not fitting your schedule, please make sure you withdraw before that date. I hate giving Fs in this class. Honestly, I've never given an F in this class unless it's someone that's failed to withdraw. All right, the accounting lab. The accounting lab always is a great resource for assistance in this class. I can tell you the day assistant is usually going to provide a little bit more help than the night when it comes to access, because I'm also there to assist if you're there. The night assistant can also help. I've just been told the day assistant is a little bit more helpful. Some have more knowledge in different areas. But please, if you're struggling, come to the lab and try to get some help. Now, when it comes to any type of academic services, if you need them, please let me know. Go to the Academic Support Center or the Access Office. Your quizzes are not timed, you don't have a final exam, and you're not on campus, so usually this class doesn't need any type of additional assistance for students, but if you do, please make sure you get them so we can make sure you are getting the services that you need. All right, so let's take a look at the schedule of assignments that's listed in your syllabus, and then we'll go to the assignment tab. All right, so we're starting off with week 1, and unfortunately the iPad is a little bit slower than my computer. My computer already has it up on the screen. The iPad's slowing it down. It's still slowing it down. Okay. Well, I'll just keep talking, and hopefully my screen here is going to continue. So, as I mentioned, everything is broken down by weeks. In the first week, I actually have 2 different items. Week 1, it says Office 2016, Common Features, there we go, and Chapter 1, Introduction to Access. You can see, when looking at it, if you go ahead and glance at Week 2, Week 2 also has Chapter 2, Tables and Queries. So when we do that, you can see the table assignment. Assignment tab will say Chapter 2 Quiz, Hands-On, and Homework. So in Week 2, there's only the one chapter. Now, going back to Week 1, if you feel that you have a good working knowledge of Office 2016, then you do not need to go through that chapter. However, if you're not sure where you stand, then I would take the time to go through that chapter and make sure you got that information. All right, so that is this Office 2016. There's no homework that needs to be turned in for that. That is just for your knowledge. The homework that's due at the beginning of next week is just Chapter 1. Every assignment will always be due on Monday by the end of the day, 11:59, with the exception of the final project. The final project is due, if you look at the very bottom, the final project is actually due on a Wednesday, the last week of class. So as you can see, Chapter 7 is due on Monday, March 6th, and the final case project is due on Wednesday, March 8th. That is the last week of classes. At that point, all late homework must also be turned in by Wednesday, March 8th. So if you're running behind, you have to be caught up by the end of the day, March 8th, at the same time when your project is due to be turned in. So that is the syllabus. I suggest you take another look at it as well. So let's go back to the Blackboard tab and see what it is that we have left to cover. So we've covered everything all the way down with the exception of the Start Here we did start here, sorry, exception of the assignment tab. So this is the assignment tab. And just as in your syllabus had it, we have week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The final project is not out there yet. It won't be released until about week 5 or 6. So for this week, you would click on week 1. You cannot see my cursor, but I'm clicking right here. And when I click on week 1, it brings me into this. Every week is going to look like this. You have a quiz, you have a hands-on exercise, and you have a homework assignment. I suggest you look at the book and or PowerPoint, then you come in and do the hands-on exercise, so the middle exercise. Then you do the quiz, and then you do the homework. And remember, if you're short on time, the quizzes cannot be turned in late. As it says here, you have 2 attempts at the quiz, and once you start it, you must finish it. And it's due at 11:59. The hands-on exercise is meant for you to practice. It's usually a little bit easier to go through, and if you take your time, the homework will be nice and easy. So, to start the hands-on exercises or the homework, again, you need to click on the tabs that will take you in. Notice under each one, I have said what page you need to go to start the project. Those are at the end of each chapter. So when I go in and I click, sorry this keeps coming up, when I click hands-on, and again you can't see my cursor but it turns into a little hand, this is what I get. Now yours will not say preview, it does that because I'm the instructor. It gives you the same information that I had before, that you go to page 93 and start with that database, and that database below is this one down here that says A01H1 traders.accdb. That is the database you're going to start with. When you're done, you are going to print to a file these 3 steps. Hands-on number 2, step 1E, hands-on number 2, step 2B, and hands-on number 3, step 2H. Remember I said in the hands-on exercises they have 3, sometimes 2, 3, or 4 different steps. It's due by January 23rd on Monday, and it's worth 15 points. Once you go to page 93 and complete that, you want to save the new database. It shows you down here that you want to save the new database as contacts and your last name. And when you're done submitting this, you should have 2 databases based on your on what you've done. And then you're going to scroll down to the bottom where you're going to browse the computer and attach it. So let me show you how this would work. I hit browse my computer, and let me go find a database. Alright, so here's a database. Actually, that's not a database. Let me find a database. Okay, here's a database. It's actually Traders, the one we talked about. I'm going to click on it. You can see that now. And then I'm going to hit open. And that attached my database, that Traders database that you started with. Now it's complete. It also said I'm going to have those 3 printouts. So I'd go back and hit browse. And then I'm going to look for printouts. I highly suggest that you do, as I mentioned, the PDF. Those are easiest for me to read as well. So then you're going to go down and you're going to say, well, where are my printouts? Well, PDFs look like this. So there's a PDF. Then I go back and find. Now in your file, as I suggested, I would have a folder meant just for this. That way you won't have all those files you just saw me pulling from. So there's the Trader database, 3 PDF files, and then in this one you also created a new database. So I would have to come find one more, and I do remember seeing another database in here. I think it was called nope, that's a PowerPoint. database 2. All right, and when they're all submitted, you're going to see this one here, the top one, Traders, has a .accdb. That means database. These next three have a PDF. They could also have the extension XPS if you're using that, or it could say OneNote if you're using that extension. Then the last one I attached is also an ACCDB. That means database. If for some reason in between your database 2, the dot, and the ACCDB, there is a L or a 1, that means you've attached the locked version of your database, and you do not want to do that. All right, you want to make sure it just says ACCDB. Then when you're done, you're welcome to put comments here, but remember what I said, I will not get those comments until I grade. You hit submit. If you hit save as draft, I will not get it. Hit submit. And when you do that, it will then show up in the grade book as submitted but not graded. And I believe it's a white box that you will see. Now notice it takes a little bit of time once you hit submit, because I've already hit submit. And that's because of the size of the databases and the PDF files. So a couple things about your homework, and then we'll wrap this up. Number one, if you're having problems, you cannot email me your database. The college strips your database. So if you have questions, you need to email me that you have questions. More than likely in the first 4 chapters, I will be able to answer your question without seeing your database. Sometimes I can't, and if that's the case, you will have to submit your database just like we just did. I will look at your database, I'll tell you what I see, and then you can continue working, and then you can submit it again. You can submit your homework unlimited number of times. I will always grade the last submission. I will always grade the last submission. So then you're done. As you can see here, now you're done. It's been submitted. Mine hasn't because I'm instructor, but it shows as submitted. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. So then you would do that for the hands-on and for the homework. I always tell you how many attachments you should have, and I always give you the date in which it's due. I always give you a database to start with, unless you're starting with a blank database. Everything you need for this class is in Blackboard. You need nothing else from the book except for the content. Everything you need is in this. Everything you need. So I'm going to end this video on the class, the orientation, but you need to then go watch how to print to a file. And I think that's the, let's see, go back to start here. And under start here, you'll have the orientation video that you just got done watching, and then you have that print to a file video. And then you have your syllabus quiz. Once you complete your syllabus quiz, you'll email that to me. When I get it, I will respond back to you that I received it, and then you're good to go in the class to continue working. If you have any questions at all, on the screen ahead of you, you're going to be bouncing back. There you go, to the Start Here button. If you have any questions at all, please shoot me an email. I wish you luck, and I look forward to working with you.